welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I will be your host for this evening as always. So thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Pull up a chair. We've moved up. We've got bourbons in tonight. Yes, we've got some filter coffee to have yourself a seat, because tonight's episode is going to be called Doctor, I Feel Like a Board Game. Can't you wait your turn? Because joining me tonight is Tom Clare from Big Imagination Games. Or should I say Dr. Clare to everybody that's here. So good evening, Tom. How are you?
Good evening. I'm very well, thank you, Richard. Yeah, thanks for having me on. What a pleasure.
That's all right.
To be here.
It's okay. It's okay.
I just don't feel nearly famous enough to be on this show, to be honest.
See, this is the concern, right? We're going to address this first of all, okay? We will never ever say no to anybody that wants to come to speak to us.
Yeah, I am living proof of that truth.
Anyone that says never ever, it's like, that's why we've just, it doesn't matter. We just I'm nosy by definition, because I'm a sales guy. So the idea is that I say, I find out lots of stuff about you, and then I try and sell you this lovely fridge that's sitting next to me. So it's a delight to have you on, because you're from Big Imagination Games.
I am indeed. Yes, yeah, that's me.
And we're here to talk about your fantastic Kickstarter, which is going to be coming out on Monday, which is called, is it Champions of the Wild?
Yeah, so the Champion of the Wild.
There you go. So first of all, we need to say to everybody that thank you first of all for listening. The reason that we do this is because we think there's quite simply not enough podcasts out there about board games, or board games out there about podcasts. There's definitely not any board games out there about podcasts, is there?
That's I don't think I have any.
I've
really.
never heard of a board game about a podcast. If you've heard about a board game about a podcast, then go and get in contact with us at We're Not Wizards through the usual places, because that's it. Stop the podcast. I've got my Kickstarter idea. That's sorted. We just have to design it now, Tom. This is the thing. I don't know whether to call you Tom, whether to call you Mr. Clare, or whether to call you Dr. Clare, or call you Doctor.
Actually, I normally TC is enough.
TC.
So, yeah, TC for patience. Patience to know me well.
Like Top Cat.
Yeah, exactly. That's me. Yeah.
Hey, Top Cat.
Yeah.
Hey, TC. No, I'm not going to do that, because that's just exactly how it is. And the second reason that we do this, because we did do the first reason, but we went off on a tangent as usual. Yeah. Is because I've got a whole list of doctor jokes that we've got to get through tonight. And I thought, I'm going to try out my material, and who better to get on to discuss doctor jokes would be our very own kind of doctor. So there you go.
Yeah, here I am. Yeah, see if you can get any in kind of secretly that people don't notice.
I don't know. Just recently, I think I'm a bell, to be honest. TC. So take them and here, have some pills, and if they don't work, give me a ring. Ding, da, ding. It's going to be awful.
It's going to be a long night.
It's going to be like putting a slug in the 100 metres.
Well, there it is. That's a nice segue.
There you go. Because before we start, what we like to do is we like to find out a little bit about somebody's history with the hobby. So what we're going to do is we're going to reminisce about the past. We're going to have cheery, happy conversations about the present before we soar off like a bird into the future. But first of all, you're going to be like that.
A bird.
It's as good as anything. And you're going to be wondering, I could have been doing something else. I could have been looking. I could have been catching up on my bunion photographs and recognising different types of bunions, but no, I'm on the show instead. But what we need to do is we need to find... I'm on a yellow one and I'm going up. We need to find out a little bit about your history. So if you want to tell us a little bit about your history with the printed cardboard.
Yeah, no worries. So I've always been a gamer in a sense. So ever since I was little, games of family, not necessarily cardboard games initially, but things like family holidays and scoring systems for things you can spot, and like making everything into a game when I was a kid. But I did the kind of standard kid thing with board games, going through all the classics. I was in the kind of Mousetrap, Don't Break the Ice, that sort of generation, and that sort of thing. And then going through school age, I was a card game player, so I used to have a lunchtime club where me and some other cool kids would sit and play bridge. Super cool, between maths lessons.
You played bridge?
We played bridge. Yeah. It's a good game.
Were you a strong bridge player?
No, I was awful. But fortunately, the rest of them were awful as well. So it was a bit of a laugh. And we played a bit of Hearts as well.
Yeah.
That was kind of. I think we were longing for the cardboard that we didn't know existed at the time. So lots of cards and stuff growing up, and then I got into Risk as well around adolescence. As I think, who was it that was I heard on your show the other day was talking about Risk? Was it? Wasn't Steve Tudor? It was. I can't remember who it was now. It was Mike. Was Mike?
It was
Barnes.
Mike Barnes. Yeah, he talked about the love of Risk Legacy and other such things. Which but Risk is this kind of like a sideways thing. It's a game that people know what existed, and I know a lot of people have played. And I was actually had a memory pop back to say that I used to play Risk on a regular basis, but it was so long ago. I think it was round about the time I got my hands on to Space Crusade and Hero Quest that I put that to one side and played with the little plastic figures instead. So when did you first get involved in the kind of what people would say the kind of the staple stuff, the kind of the more heavier kind of cardboard?
Yeah, so my kind of revelation Catan moment was probably about 2010, I reckon, 7 years ago. So I was mid doing a graduate medical degree, and had that kind of friends invite you around and ask you to play a game. I'm always up for a game, and then kind of, that kind of feeling of revelation where you think, wow, this is more than just rolling a dice. What's going on here? There is something else. And inevitably there follows the kind of avalanche of games that I investigated and started buying and signed up to BGG and tried to kind of work my way down the top 30 and find ones that I fancied. So then my collection has grown since then. The only problem I have is finding people to play with me. So
why is that? Is it just groups or is it just time?
Yeah. Well, you've probably put a finger on both actually. So it's groups and time. So obviously, up until just this August, I've been doing hospital kind of shift work and 13-hour shifts and lots of weekend work as well, and also got 3 young kids. So finding any time to sit down with my wife and be like, right, let's play a game. And it's also fun. It's also, I mean, I'm obsessed with board games, but my wife is not quite as obsessed.
Right.
So, some people apparently, when they want to relax, they like to sit down and just like talk or kind of have a drink or just watch TV. I don't understand that. No. I can't imagine not wanting to sit down and play a 3-hour game of Agricola, but apparently some people don't.
Could you not sit at the end of somebody's bed and say, okay, while we're waiting for your results, here's a deck of 50 cards. Just start magic. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know? Yeah, I do wonder whether I could bring board games into my consultations a bit more as a GP now.
I think that would be quite
maybe that's something
cool.
worth trying.
Can you imagine that? And then you just like say, okay, now the previous patient who came in, he's got a bit of a rash, but we can't say because it's privilege. You can't say, and don't go walk out and go, oi, Rashy Peter. But we've been playing, we've been playing a bit of Catan here, and I've rolled the dice, and I've got some stone, and you get that. What are you going to do next? It's your turn to roll the dice. And you could do that through the entire day, and you could get...
Well, I wonder... Yeah. I wonder whether you could have like a turn-based thing where I play a turn and then the next patient plays a turn sort of thing as they come through the door.
And then you'd end up with patients coming far and wide because you'd get to known as the board game doctor. Yeah. And then what would happen is you get Channel 4 knocking on your door, going to do like a reality, some kind of show. And then you could be... And then you could be TC, board game doctor. And they would just be a naff picture. They'd probably do a picture where you with like Monopoly under your arm, and then you'd be able to educate people. But I don't know. there's there is the power of keeping people's minds active and stuff like that as well. So maybe, medical benefits.
Yeah, I think there is. And I mean, the doctor's waiting rooms are pretty dull places to be.
Oh, I know.
If you're waiting for me, you might be waiting for a while. So, could
you imagine if somebody brought in like a game of Two Booms in a Room or something like that, or something?
Oh, yes, so good.
Or Werewolf. Everybody's sitting around. It's like, now everybody close your eyes, open your eyes at the werewolf. People would come flock. Do you know what I mean? They would wake up in the morning and go, oh, I think I've look at that, I've cracked that nail, and then they'd be straight on the phone to try and get an appointment.
Oh, do you know, I'd be quite keen for that, actually. Maybe I'll mention it to the
I think you should try it and maybe put it into the budget. I think, if you could start what we didn't. Well, we were going to get bandages, but we ended up getting the next. Why are we getting Cool Mini or Not boxes getting delivered to the surgery? Oh, I've no idea. What's Rising Sun? It's an ointment.
It's very big.
What did you go for that? I went for the biggest pledge possible. It's like, what do we need to do? But have a word with Shona, because she's been giving out a single figure to every single patient that comes in, and now we don't know where all the stuff's gone. We've now got to scour the streets and try and bring all the stuff back. And he nicked the special card. He's not getting anything at all. If he comes back for his asthma medicine, tell him to go somewhere else. But you said, but I mean, that aside, I mean, you said you've not had an awful lot of time. Do you then, I mean, how often do you manage to get a fix, and kind of how often do you manage to get a fix?
Do you know, so it's funny, so it's become a bit of a thing with my birthdays and with Christmases, like it's a bit of a joke that all I'm going to ask for is board games, and the kind of heaviness rating has been gradually decreasing as kind of time goes on. I once bought my brother-in-law Dominant Species for one Christmas when I first got into board games. Yeah. And have you played Dominant Species?
I've seen it in action.
My word, so good. So good. I'm a massive fan. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I've seen it played, and it looks kind of vicious, but at the same time it looks a little bit it looks a little bit complicated as well.
Yeah, so if you imagine a game that you wouldn't want to crack out with 5 other non-gamers on Christmas Day, it's probably Dominant Species, because it would take about 4 hours to go through it all. So since that, I've been kind of learning that to get to play games, I need to kind of get people to buy me slightly lighter ones. But so I probably get one maybe once a month at the moment, but with all the kind of work on the project and things. So not much.
What have you been playing recently then?
Well, so I picked up King Domino after some good reviews.
Yes.
So I have managed to get that to sale probably 3 or 4 times with some friends locally, and I've played a bit of Jaipur as well, which I got for the first time.
Yeah.
Not long ago. So they're probably things I've played recently, and someone gave me Suburbia for my birthday back in June, which I'm still waiting to get out. I'm looking forward to.
I've heard some very good things about Suburbia. King Domino, that won an award recently.
Yes, it was
Spiel
the
des Jahres or something like that. I can't pronounce it,
was.
and I'm not going to. But what's it about? Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about King Domino? If you've played it a couple of times? What's it about?
Of course. Yeah. I have, yeah. So it's quite a simple game, very similar in mechanic to just a simple dominoes. You start off with your single it's a tile-laying game, and you'll lay a 5x5 grid of tiles. And you start with a single tile that counts as 1 by 1. And then you have these 2 by 1 tiles that you're going to gradually lay down. And they're going to try and match up with the different terrains that you've already put down to make as many kind of point scoring different areas as you can. And the tiles either have a terrain on, but they also have a crown on sometimes, and they're the kind of valuable tiles. And the way the actual mechanic works is you put your meeple on one of the 4 options for tiles, which and then the next go you'll take that tile and you'll get the first choice if you're on top, and the second choice if you're second, and the third choice if you're third on that list. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you choose a good tile, which is down the bottom and has more crowns on, you'll generally get the last choice for the next round of domino choosing. That may not make any sense, but you gradually then evolve your board, and you try and not to get stuck with empty corners, which most people do. And then at the end, you count up the score. It only takes about maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes to play, and it's very accessible for early gamers or non-gamers. So that's and it's good fun actually. There's a bit of strategy to it. If you card count a bit, you can eke some strategy out of there as well. So
is it something that even younger kids could play? Could you kind of house rule it a bit and allow the kids to kind of play it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my 4-year-old could hasn't actually played it yet with me, but I think he could play because you'd have to match up and stuff. You match up the terrain types. He wouldn't have much of a strategy, and I would absolutely mop the floor with him. So,
are you tempted to do that just to teach him a lesson? I know. Life lessons. You can't win everything.
Well, actually, I don't know whether, I mean, I subscribe to the sort of playing with kids board game geek forums, and there's a big kind of discussion about whether or not you should let your children win, and whether you should just nail them every time and kind of teach them how the world is. Or, I mean, initially you play games with them that are luck-based. You play like just spin one called Spotty Dogs by Ultra Toys, where you just spin a thing and whoever wins, they do win because it's just luck. Frustration,
which is
frustration. Oh my word!
Such a correct. Do you know what I mean? It is just the.
Oh, I've written not that much of a blog, but I've written a blog about how bad kids games are for parents. It's just such hard work to play some of those games.
It is almost the case that kids games when you're younger will put people off board games for life, because if you say to somebody, what do? It's like, I like a little bit of cardboard, what like, and they look at you like exactly. You've just grown like an arm out the side of your head and you're waving like six cards at them or something like that. And but on the other side of it, if you welcome them into the world, they realise how magical it is. But I wonder if those games kind of put them off. I've said a while ago that my kids brought round a copy of Monopoly for kids that they got off an aunt, and nobody loses. Everybody wins, and at the end you have a big party. And I was just like, that's not even traditional Monopoly. That's just a whole load of.
Nobody loses. Oh, that really annoys me as well. There's a whole kids thing recently about everyone has to win. You can't have somebody losing, and it's like, it upsets me. The thing that really upsets me is that when you look at the design of these kids games, it would be so easy to make it slightly interesting for the parents, and to get some engagement level. To set some sort of parental challenge or like change a rule a bit, so it's more, there's a decision or two in there. But most of these games for young kids just have no decisions at all, and it kills me to play them with the kids. Do you know it would be cool if you had? I do remember that guy that made Scythe into My Little Pony for his daughter, and I thought there's so many board games out there that I would love to be able to house rule. Yeah, and because I got my son, he's 4 as well, So how is he?
Yeah. So we actually played a little bit of Mice and Mystics, which is a beautiful kind of story-based game by Plaid Hat Games, and we house ruled it up to Hydo, But in every kind of battle that he fought, he kind of won. He never had a struggle, but he had a thoroughly good time, and it kind of opened up his eyes to what was happening. Obviously, the next game we played was Netrunner, and it's not my fault he can't read. Scored 3 agendas within the first 7 turns. You know what I mean? It's just like the boy's got to learn.
He's got to learn. He's got to learn. Well, there's 2 schools of thought, and that is one of them, that the boy's got to learn. And then at some point he'll beat you, and it'll be the best day of his life because he's lost so many games to you over the years.
My middle son's like that. He's we've played Star Realms, the card game. Yep, he's kicked my butt at that. We played Viticulture as well, and he managed to. Yeah, he kicked my butt at that as well. I think he's getting to the point where he's at that age where he kind of knows. He knows he's already looking at strategies and stuff like that. We've played quite a few games together, and I'm going from that thing where I'm kind of, oh look, Daddy just made a mistake, haha, to are you actually kidding me? And close to like flipping the kind of the table. So do you have quite a reasonable collection then? If you're getting if you're able to kind of pick up one on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of irony, isn't it? The as a board game kind of obsessed young man, I've got loads of games, and I've probably got 7 or 8 in my pile of shame at the moment that I just haven't played at all.
Yeah.
So, but I just can't stop buying new ones, or at least trying to buy new ones, and try and pester my wife that I need to buy another game or get one for my birthday. So, yeah, but it does feel a bit sad just to watch that pile of shame grow. So I haven't bought one for a while. King Domino was my last one, which was a couple of months ago now. So
that's all right.
Trying to, and I've got Gloomhaven arriving at some point from Kickstarter.
Have you? Is this the new second edition?
Yeah, the new second edition, indeed. Yeah. I managed to sell that one because I've got an old friend of mine who has just moved to the area and is going to love playing Gloomhaven. So I've sold that to my wife as a kind of investment in my friendship with this guy.
Honey, sometimes you're going to make friends. Sometimes it's going to cost money. And it's like, well, listen.
Yeah, exactly.
If we went down the pub a couple of Saturdays.
Yeah, completely.
If we went and watched the football.
Yep.
Then you'd have the cost of the ticket for the football, we'd have the transport there, we'd have something to eat, we'd have a couple of pints. I mean, exactly. That is about £100.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can get, you get months of joy out of Gloomhaven, I'm sure. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah. She kind of said yes, so we've got there in the end.
Does she ever even kind of? Because I must admit, my wife's the same. She kind of looks at it and goes, "What are you doing? This is cardboard. These are for kids. What are you doing?" Does she ever have kind of like a look at them and go, "Oh, that kind of seems interesting," or is she just kind of, "Well, that's your thing, and I'm going to leave you alone with it"?
No, do you know what? She's really good. She's really supportive with the kind of game stuff that I'm doing project wise. But she's also I don't know how it happened, but I managed to teach her and get her to play Agricola once, and she absolutely loves it.
Oh,
I know, and that's one of the heaviest games that I've got.
But, yeah, it's not. Yeah. That's kind of like straight from starter into main course with a big steak, isn't it? Kind of thing.
And I maybe it was just too much too soon, but since then her enthusiasm has not been quite as good. I've played a couple of games of Patchwork with her, and she's kind of into that.
Yeah.
But, and Splendor as well. So she likes the kind of lighter games that are a bit quicker. I mean, she's obviously quite tired from childcare a lot of the time, so spending a 3-hour epic thinking about kind of moves is not always what she's keen for.
Exactly. And it's kind of like I've spent the entire day looking after the kids. I'm not then gonna play anything with you cardboard related. Child. Kind of thing.
Exactly. Go and listen to another podcast.
Exactly. Yeah. So how does TC the game player move into TC the designer and say, actually, where in your mind you kind of come from saying, well, actually, this is good, I've got some ideas, and actually I can do something myself. I mean, how did you make the switch?
It's a bit of a funny one because it kind of happened by accident, in a way, and I think a lot of these sorts of games. So the game that we're running from Monday is going to be a kind of social game, and I think a lot of times the story behind these social games is it comes from friends and from kind of conversation. It just kind of happens naturally at some point, and then at some stage it becomes an idea that you run with. And so I was always into games, but it kind of came out as a parlor game and kind of just chatting among friends, which animal would you choose for this sort of thing. And then I kind of refined it a bit, thinking it'd be a bit of a better game to play with friends if it was, if you had a range of events and a range of animals, and you kind of made sure people chose different ones. And so over the course, it was over the course of about 5 years, it kind of gradually evolved through conversations with friends. And then it was probably maybe 3.5 years ago, when I started talking about, when I discovered Jamie Stegmaier's blog and started talking about self-publishing and got the art done and the graphic design and stuff. And I don't really know I think I just got quite excited by the whole thing, and this whole Kickstarter phenomenon, the fact you can have an idea and a game that you think is unique in you, and you can just take it to Kickstarter and it can exist, which is really exciting for me. So that's where it started, really. Just kind of decided.
For you, was it also maybe a bit of a break from the fact that you are in a high pressure arena that you are having to be very precise in your actions, you being kind of like being a doctor, that, you know, your creative skills are maybe have to be subdued for you to continually be using a particular part of your brain in an analytical kind of manner?
Yeah, I think that's a very calm way of putting it. Actually, yeah. I do think I think I'm bored easily. I think I often need other things to think about, and it did help. You know, when you're dealing with some difficult stuff at work and people you've seen that aren't very well, having something else to think about and something else to kind of get obsessed about was quite useful at times. And I used to spend. There was times when I was doing night shifts. So some night shifts on general surgery where it can be really busy when you're kind of just spending all night running around seeing people, and sometimes it can be really quiet and you're just kind of supposed to be in bed. But I remember several night shifts I would just spend kind of cutting out my prototypes and, you know, making plans about which events to use. And so, yeah, it's having a distraction in that sort of role is really useful. And I've certainly found it important, for my kind of health. Yeah.
When you were, when you were first kind of prototyping, prototyping the game, how different is the finished product from the original kind of prototypes?
Well, it's quite different. So, obviously the art and the design was non-existent, before, which I think was one of the main things that, people get kind of struck by about the game as it stands now. But as I say, it started off as just a simple, like, you know, which animal would you choose for this? And that mechanically, the nuance of trying to maximise the fun of the game. So the fun bit of the game is talking about what animals do badly. So making sure that you have animals and events that will ensure that some animals are doing badly on every event, because that's the funny thing. So that was the kind of design challenge, and that has really improved it since the first prototype was out there, and that was sort of 3 or 4 years ago now. Yeah, so it has changed a bit mechanically, but mostly kind of graphically and presentation-wise. You know, from my hand scrawls of animals, it's now looking much better.
Have you still got like the original prototypes kicking around? Do you have like the box that's got all the original stuff in it? Have you? Yeah,
I do. I've got a cereal box that I turned into a board. For some reason, I was obsessed with having a board with a massive racetrack around the edge and loads of stuff in the middle that's completely unnecessary. I realised.
So you were actually going for the London 2012 Olympics.
Yeah, I was exactly. Yeah, that was the idea. And that kind of focus on the Olympics is probably partly why the first project last year kind of fell on its face, because I was so focused on getting it out before the Olympics started last year. So
okay,
yeah,
because going on to that, so you kind of put the game together, you got it to prototype phase, you kickstarted it last year.
Yeah, I did.
And what was? Is there it must be, but your first project, was it pressure? Was there kind of like, I'm going to have to do that? You sounded like pressure, because you said you wanted to get it out kind of before the Olympic Games. So.
Yeah. Do you know, it's funny because you can read, you know, I've probably read the whole of Jamie Stegmaier and James Matthews' blog twice or 3 times, all of it. And you can read a load of advice, loads of forums, loads of, you know, all the Facebook groups that I'm in. And yet somehow you can still be completely ignorant, even if you've done all that research. So even though, like, everyone, you know, the kind of lesson number 1 from Stegmaier is you don't need to launch today. You know, basically like chill out if you're not ready, don't bother. Somehow I became quite focused on this Olympics thing, and the fact that it would fit really well with the Olympics, and it would be good to be out at the same time. And I think realistically, because I was doing obstetrics and gynecology at the time, so doing long weekends and night shifts quite a lot. Didn't have the time to build the crowd that I needed to build, and and that's the main reason that it failed, along with a few other things. So yeah, it was an interesting learning experience actually, and I'm glad I went through that in a way to make it better and to kind of bring it to where it is now. But there was pressure. I put pressure on myself really unnecessarily. Is the answer. Yeah.
That's the. I've seen that. I've seen that a few times now. I think sometimes it's almost like a rite of passage for people to kind of put a Kickstarter out there, and then they cancel it or it doesn't fund, and then 2 months later, 3 months later, 6 months later, a year later, they release it again, and it just does kind of great guns. And it's I don't know if it's because people are more relaxed, if they've built up a bigger audience. I don't know. I've seen. I mean, when we had Mark Neidlinger from Orange Nebula on.
Yeah.
And he was like, he sounded like he did the same thing as you. He was on the blogs, he had his game plan down, he knew exactly what he was doing. He pulled the campaign after 2 weeks because he says this isn't happening. And then he came back and he absolutely kind of smashed it. It was the same with Justin at Elements. He launched Elements, didn't go anywhere, didn't get funded, he cancelled it, he came back, it funded well. So I mean, I think there's a continual it's almost a case of you don't know what Kickstarter's going to be like until you're on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I think so. It is so accessible, and all you have to do is click a few buttons and you can launch a project. So and as much as you try and be prepared, I think you're right. I think you can. I think probably compared to those other guys, mine was more ignorant than theirs was. In terms of, I didn't really have a crowd, and that's kind of lesson number one. And there is a crowd now, and I hope it will do well when it comes out. We'll see, but it's certainly a bit of a rite of passage, and you do learn a lot from failure. You probably learn a lot more from failure than you do from successes. So I found in my professional life as well.
You can share if you want, but
yeah. Well, when you kill someone, it changes you.
No, I didn't mean that. I meant, you accidentally told them they had a wart instead of like a, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I've done some. No, I've never done. I've unfortunately never done anything too awful. I have dribbled on a few patients before, which has been the most kind of awkward thing that's happened to me. When you've got a bit of a runny nose and you go to work anyway.
It's just like you say to them, now, Mrs. Mulberry, it's really important that you don't. You make sure that you don't come into contact with anyone that's.
No, exactly. Yeah, no, my nose dribbled all over a patient when I was trying to examine them. It was just really, really bad, really bad. And I was a student at the time actually, and I had my colleagues standing behind me, just kind of mocking me and laughing as they saw this snot dribble onto this patient's chest.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Did they say anything? Did they pray patient, or did you just say, "Oh my goodness"?
Do you know? I don't think they actually know. Either they didn't notice, or they were really good about hiding it. So only the people behind me noticed, my friends. But yeah, I think they were just really kind and didn't want to humiliate me any more than I was already.
I would probably look down, knowing the way I am, and I went, "Oh my goodness, this is weeping." It's really bad. I'm sorry, but we're just going to have to give you a bell and a sign to walk around with. Let's talk about the mechanics of the game, because we're doing unusual. We've done over half an hour and we've still not talked. We still
talked about it at all.
But that's my modus operandi.
Oh, we love it. Everyone loves it. If they're still here, then that's why they're listening.
Exactly. So, the Champion of the Wild. How would you play it?
Okay, so first of all, so you got between 3 and 6 players, and 3 of those players will choose an event, so that they randomly choose who's going to be the event selector, and they will choose one category. So there's 5 different event categories. You've got speed, power, endurance, technical, and team. And each of those 3 event selectors will choose one pile. And they'll then take their 3 cards from that pile and choose their favourite of those 3 events. So you might choose the power one, and you'll have Royal Rumble or destroying a shed, or jousting being a good example that's been popular. And you'll choose your favourite of those 3, and then your friend will choose their favourite from the technical pile, like long jump or these sorts of things. So you get your 3 events. So you've got 3 different events from different categories, and you then get 7 animal cards in your hand. So you'll have a hand of all different cards, ranging from as small as a mosquito to as big as a blue whale, and all different types of animals. And you're going to have to choose from your hand one animal that's going to compete in all 3 of those events on the cards. So you'll need to think about being big enough to do jousting, but small enough to hide in a house, and kind of fast enough to run 100 meters, that sort of thing. which inevitably means that you have to compromise in some way. And you then announce your animals, and you then go through each event in turn, and you kind of discuss your strategy, what you're going to do, how you're going to maximize your performance for your crocodile or your killer whale in the event. And then you kind of you can look stuff up online, look up YouTube videos of a gorilla dancing or whatever. You can kind of pick apart other people's strategies and kind of point out the fact that they are being ridiculous. And then kind of when people are ready, they turn over a ready to vote card, which basically means like, I'm done discussing this now, this is no longer interesting. And you move on to voting. And you do blind voting for each event after you've discussed it. So no one quite knows who's winning till the end of the game, but you pass out tokens to the other animals based on where you think they would finish. And you exclude your own animals, so there's no kind of bias there. And that's kind of a garbled explanation of how it works. You can tell I haven't practiced this, can't you? This is the first podcast I've done, you can tell.
Is it? Oh,
yeah, it is actually. Yeah,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, does that surprise you? Have I been smooth?
It's been
right?
Silky. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
It's been. I've been quite impressed by your kind of your pod side manner.
There it is. That wasn't even planned.
No, that was just this is what it's just fast thinking. Just fast thinking.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean?
That's why you're the entertainment guru.
I could be a pharmaceutical salesman. I could never be a doctor. Do you know what I mean? Because I'd just go over and say, it could be worse, and then I'd just squeeze her nose and go, you could have a bike horn for a nose. On you go. I couldn't do that. I mean,
have you ever done that before?
What's that?
That is brilliant.
The bike, no.
Squeeze someone's nose and say it could be worse.
No,
that's amazing. I'm going to start doing that.
You have to do that for people.
I'm going to start doing that. Yeah, for someone who comes in with a cold, I'm just going to start doing that.
Yeah. Or you could just say, look on the bright side. You can buy Velcro shoes and just leave it like that, and just not say anything else. Because I'd
just stand up and open the door.
Messing with people's heads. Doctor jokes are brilliant. But anyway, so moving on from whether Dr. Clare's any good on a podcast, which he blatantly is. The events, did you start off with kind of like serious events, or did you say, well, let's have, because you mentioned destroying a shed?
Yeah, destroying a shed, yeah, that's one of the new events, yeah, that's in the power category, yeah.
So what kind of events can people take part in? Did you kind of go, 100 metres, 200 metres, 400 metres, 800 metres, that's lots of running.
Yeah.
That would be a cheetah, potentially, or would it be a leopard, or would it be a lion? But then again, a wolf could do a pretty good job on that.
Or would it be, if you think outside the box, and remember that you can have water lanes in these events, would it be better to have a sailfish or a dolphin? That's the question you have to ask yourself. What's faster?
It depends, because it depends if a dolphin would stop halfway through and try and entertain the crowds.
well, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it depends how well you've trained him, to be honest, Richard. If you're the sort of trainer who kind of lets your animals, do that sort of thing in the middle of their training regime, then, maybe.
I would probably put a ball halfway through down the lane so he could stop halfway through and do a little crowd play. Yeah. He'd be like the Usain Bolt of the kind of the dolphin world. He'd go really, really fast, and then at the end he would just go, look how cool I am. I'm going to balance a ball on the end of my kind of nose. One thing I've got to say is the artwork on this is phenomenal.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It's really, really good. I mean, that's one of the scary things, because you see, I've seen the standards on Kickstarter seem to be very, very high. I've seen people put stuff on Kickstarter, and I've went, guys, just a little bit more, ramp it up a little bit more, and you're there. Yeah. But this stuff is incredible. I mean, was that something that was really, really important to you to kind of get right from the beginning? And did you commission all this art for the game? Yeah,
it was really important, and I think there's so many games out there now, like so many on Kickstarter being published, and especially loads of party games, loads of social games, different ways of interacting, and the problem is standing out amongst the kind of massive crowd, and a lot of these games don't have any art because it is a bit of a cost, and sometimes it doesn't quite match up for your accounts to spend so much on art for a tiny game. But certainly with the idea and with the kind of theme and with this kind of unique, animals competing thing, I was really keen to get some art to kind of show that off kind of immediately to would-be backers. And I was lucky enough to find this amazing artist, Kevin Chapman, through an advert that I placed online. And he sent me, it was quite fun actually. So I'd had probably about maybe 60 or 70 applications for this kind of paid thing, just to kind of trial for one or two pieces of art. And on the last 5 minutes of the deadline, which had been about 2 weeks deadline, I got an email from Kevin Chapman, who's now the artist, and everyone else had just emailed being like, yes, I am really good at art, please look at my portfolio. Copy paste, which is fair enough because people are busy and they're applying for lots of jobs. And he sent me, so the thing that he sent me as an application for this first job was what has now become the Royal Rumble card art with an elephant in a boxing ring with a bear on the floor just outside. Because so he'd gone and read my blog about elephants doing kind of throwing other animals out of the ring, and he'd done a piece of art based on that blog entry as his application. It was just incredible. So he's been just head and shoulders above the rest. So it was an easy decision really when I found him.
And so you say that the art isn't 100% kind of done. Is Kevin continuing to work on stuff kind of as you go?
Yeah, he is. So obviously, as I mentioned, art's not cheap, and if the project's not going to fund, then I'm not going to be getting 92 pieces of individual art or possibly more. Yeah. Just for me to put on my wall, as much as my wife does enjoy the project and having the giant banners from the Games Expo in the corner of our house, having it on every wall of the house might be a bit much.
There would be words in the car, you can imagine.
Yeah, there would. So I've only got art done for maybe 10 or 12 of the cards. Yeah. But what I'm seeing it as a good thing, and I think it is actually a positive thing for for any kind of potential backers, because what we're going to do during the project is to involve backers in the art direction. So say that you were a backer and you suggested a new event. So what event would you suggest, Richard? Have you got any ideas for what you want to see animals do?
What I want to see animals do? Juggle. Okay,
juggling. There you go. So you go for juggling, and if that becomes a popular event and ends up being voted into the game during the Kickstarter project, you will then be the art director, and you'll get your name on the card, and you can think about which animal you'd like to see juggling, and how you imagine the scene, and where you imagine the scene, and what the weather's like, and all this stuff, and you can kind of tell our artist, and Kevin will do it for you. So I've seen it as a kind of a positive way of involving the community in kind of making the game itself, because you'll be able to be involved in that side of things.
And have you thought about fantasy creatures as well?
Yeah, there's a lot. It's funny, whenever you post something on Facebook about kind of, which animal would win this, there's always like about 2 or 3 down. It's like, dragon or griffin, or dinosaurs. And I think there is, the great thing about the animal kingdom is that it's quite straightforward. Everyone knows it. You can look up facts. The cards have all got animals' height and weight and size and on them, so it's quite semi-factual based. You can kind of argue semi-factually based on what you think about them, whereas for mythical creatures it's a little bit more difficult, but maybe something in the future, I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah, just a version, but then I'd want them to kind of look I'd like them to look like animals that just had bits added onto them, because generally when folk kind of like do a unicorn as a magnificent beast, and I just like a horse kind of standing there going, yeah, I got a horn, not really happy about it, to be honest. Other horses used to take the mick out of me when I was at horse school.
Yeah.
Looking a bit downtrodden.
Yeah.
Can't play football. Bursting the ball. Bursty tires are rubbish.
That's been one of the interesting things actually about the art style, because there's been a bit of a kind of a dichotomy in people's reactions. Some people are like, wow, this is awesome. And then a lot of people kind of think with a kind of fun social party game, why have you gone with a photorealistic kind of? It looks like the animals actually are racing in the 100-meter hurdles on the box, for example. And I think some people are a bit like, well, that's a bit strange. Why is it not more fun, the art? Why haven't you gone for something a bit more interesting? But that was kind of the whole idea, to build the world of what it would actually be like if these animals did what we said they did.
Yeah, and I think I think generally people would go, oh, cartoony art. But then,
exactly.
But then you're heading down the kind of you're dangerously close into kind of like the exploding kittens kind of cartoony stuff that you see, bears and babies kind of cartoony stuff, and then you get close to that, and then if you did that, then people would go, no, this is just bears and babies, but it's like Olympics, kind of thing. So I like no, it's difficult to get art looking good, and this stuff's, as somebody who occasionally dabbles, it's fairly impressive.
Are you an artist, Richard? You dabble?
I have dabbled.
Oh right. Have you got any stuff online or anything I can look at?
I shall send you a link after the show. But yes,
interesting.
I'm like Garth in Wayne's World. I like to play. I'm not that good. This is my drumming. See, it's rubbish. Here's a question for you. As somebody who this is like your Kickstarter project and your second attempt at it.
Yeah. And
you being, not one of the powerhouses of this world like your Steamforge or your Themon, as we like to call them. What's your kind of do you think that the Kickstarter space is still a fair space for somebody of your size to still kind of be able to shout enough, make enough noise? Or do you find that you have to work almost like twice as hard as some of these bigger guys to kind of get noticed there's usually an average now of about 500 board game projects kind of running at any one time. If you found you had to do a lot of work to get noticed above the parapet.
Yeah, but to be honest though, Richard, I don't think that's a bad thing, and I think there are so many games out there, and the competition level is so high that you do have to do the work. And I think one of the things you say to people when they start out on this kind of journey of kickstarting is it's a lot of work. Everyone you ask will be like, this is going to take over your life and your evenings and your weekends, and it's going to take a lot of time when you go to conventions. But actually, I think it's worth it, and I think if you didn't have that obstacle of all the big fish, the sea monsters of this world, being so dominant, then I think you might have much lower quality games that actually fund and lower quality of stuff getting through. So in terms of my game, I think it's good for my game that it's been so hard, because it's made it much better, and I don't think it could be much better than it is. Whereas if it had funded last year, I think it maybe wouldn't have been as good.
Yeah, I guess the other side of it as well is it's the game that you're doing is, Champion of the Wild is unusual enough. Then the case of I'm going to make a card game. And it's like, okay, it's going to have variable. It's a card game, and you're going to be fighting off against each other, and you have magic kind of powers and stuff like that. And it's really difficult to kind of, I guess, with so many projects again out there, to make something that is different, that is original, that people are going to actually look and investigate. And do you know what? Sometimes people are a bit tired of having the same games come up again and again and again. So when they see something different like this, which is light and social, because not being funny, if I get Rising Sun and I haven't, and I'm still crying about it, but that's besides the point. I'm only going to be able to play that with a select amount of people, and there is still a part of me that thinks when I get a game in, how kind of who else can I play it with that's kind of outside the kind of the normal kind of board gaming space? Because the other thing is as well is if I play Rising Sun, that's 4 hours. That's an afternoon, that's an afternoon or an evening. And my attraction as a parent, to be honest with you, is something that I know I could play around with, we could muck around with. Anybody could get involved. I could quite easily see my 4-year-old getting involved in this, because with basic knowledge, he's going to know what an elephant's going to be able to do. He's going to know what an ant's going to do, because he's kind of seen Ant-Man, the kind of kid-friendly bits, especially the funny bit with the Thomas the Tank Engine. But do you know kind of where I'm kind of coming from with that?
I do.
Have you? How's your approach been to kind of getting the word out? Have you done more reviews and stuff like that as well? Has that kind of thing been more important than maybe last time, kind of thing?
Yeah, so I've taken it much more seriously and taken much more time on it. And I mean, I do some game reviews just for kids games, but that's more of an interest for me. Nothing really to do with the project. But what I have done is trying to engage much more in the kind of online community a little bit. And most importantly, I think for this project has been I went to the Games Expo in June and got some kind of invaluable exposure there, which was really fun, first of all, but also kind of worked out really well. Because I was featured on a couple of things, which was just fortunate, really. And also trying to just build the crowd, building a Facebook page, trying of promoting it, doing a couple of giveaways, just gradually getting likes, just sort of strolling over the months. And it takes work, it takes time, it takes a bit of money, but it has been a really fun experience. And all the people that have become regular engagers in the Big Imagination Games community, it's just been really good fun to get to know them a bit and to kind of interact with them. So the crowd building I think has been really important, and mostly been done online. But I'm hoping to get some more game reviews out once I get a bit more time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. With all game designers, we have to ask this question, which is there more games to come out of Big Imagination Games? Do you have a list of other games you would like to kind of get out there?
So that is a big question, and it all depends on this, obviously. So if I think my wife is secretly hoping that this project fails, actually, just so she can have me back and see me at some point, and have a relationship. But yeah, I do. I've got two possible things.
Yeah.
So one thing that I always wanted to do, part of my frustration with kids games, was that I think it'd be really interesting to have a game with asymmetric rules, in which the asymmetry is cut off by age. So you have a certain rule set that applies to the toddler, a certain rule set for the young child, young school age, secondary school age, and then adult. And the kind of idea would be that you would try to balance it so that it would work. It would work in a family. So you could have a game set up, and you could just be playing it. And if the toddler met their winning conditions, they would win. And once they've won it a certain number of times at their level, they move up to the next level of asymmetry, if that makes sense. So I kind of had this idea of a family game system, which I was thinking about developing a bit. But more recently, I've got distracted by a kind of a more fun idea that may just take my attention away from that.
It can be like a one-line kind of throwaway thing that you're kind of going, do you know what would be really good? That'd be really good. Different coloured doors opening in different ways, and then you go, "Oh, I've got that," and then you're off, kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's just this kind of throwaway comments. But I mean, have you thought about? I mean, is there a big box game in Big Imagination Games?
Yeah, well, I hope so. The thing is, obviously, because this is a social game, which kind of fell on my lap really more than anything else, and it's not necessarily the sort of game that I would normally, choose to play above others. Although I do really enjoy it. So the next game that I've got is going to be bigger box, probably not your Simon, your Rising Sun side at Gloomhaven sort of size, but so I'm looking at a card game which is kind of team based strategy with a battle system, and kind of did you ever play any online games where you log in, you join an alliance, you kind of build your tech, you send your armies out to different people, and kind of did you ever play any of those?
Command and Conquer
when you're growing up,
Red Alert and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I played a tick-based online game when I was growing up, and it was a funny one that ran over like 3 months. And you have 10-minute ticks where every 10 minutes you would get some more seeds into your kind of gardener's account. Yeah. And then you'd over the course of that time you could build up your kind of military, your gardener's military, and take on the other team members and build alliances and stuff. It was quite interesting the way that the kind of alliances interacted, and the way that the tech was built, and how you could choose your units based on the damage they would do. And I found it, I got quite addicted to it. And I'm trying, and I've been developing a bit, trying to replicate that experience a little bit in a board game. So I'm in early stages yet, obviously, with everything else going on. But that's the next project, and it will probably be kind of medium box size, like viticulture sort of size. We'll see.
How much is your game going to go for then? What's the price point on Kickstarter?
Oh, the Kickstarter one. That is so it's £19. That is for the game itself, and that includes shipping to the UK or the US, and it's an extra £3 to the EU or £4 to other places, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and £6 rest of the world. So it's about 19 quid.
And when they open up a box of the Champion of the Wild, what will they get inside that box?
Well, so you will get cards first of all. So you'll have 50 event cards on the base game, and 42 animal cards, so enough for 6 players to have 7 for the mathematicians out there. Then you've got voting tokens. So you're going to have 90 voting tokens, little kind of 2 centimetre diameter cardboard voting tokens. And you've got your rule book. And that is basically it. Hopefully a nice insert to make everything nicely put together. So yeah, it's quite a small box game.
Cool. Okay. And more importantly, you are... You know this is going to happen because you said you listen. You have rushed out of the local hospital where patient 0 has bitten his first infected victim. The hordes of the undead are now starting to fill the streets. Or it's like, I don't know, say Rotherham on a Saturday night. You run down the street away from the shambling people that are trying to get themselves to know you with your brain matter. You stumble and stagger down an alley, stethoscope round your neck, and your lovely white coat. You push your way into a side door that looks like a fire exit that's slightly ajar, and you shut the door behind you. You turn round, and you're in the middle of the biggest game board shop you've ever seen in your life. In the middle of the room, there's a trolley. The trolley looks like it's mobile, but it's also fairly small. It looks like it can carry at least 3 board games, plus expansions. And looking around, you can see there's any board game you could imagine. Now you're able to take games that have as many players as you want, because whether you bump into lone wolves trying to forge their way home, or onto people scrambling for communities to hold their spirits together, the answer to the question when you ask them, do they want to play a board game, is always going to be a resounding yes.
Oh, just imagine.
The question to you is, as a doctor, how would you treat the ongoing zombie horde? No, that's... The question to you is, what 3 games do you take with you?
Oof,
Dr. Clare.
That is a good question. Do you know the best thing about that is knowing that it's going to be played. So I think when we say we're including expansions, does that include kind of collectible card game?
Anything at all. If you have Netrunner, then you have the ability to have everything, and it's in a special case that carries the whole collection that's ever been.
Man. So I think the first thing to say is that I have never played Pandemic Legacy, so I think the first thing I'll have to do is wait for season 2 to come out and then get that one. I'll wait in the shop until it's come out, so like whoever it was, a couple of months.
So you
and
can
then buy that.
You're gonna add insult to injury to everybody you meet by saying, "Let's play a board game about infections."
Yeah, exactly. It's perfect, isn't it? It's perfect. Yeah, I haven't played any Legacy games, and I'm looking forward to trying out Gloomhaven, which has got some aspects, hasn't it? But so probably Pandemic Legacy Season 2 I would start with. That's what I'll hit first.
Awesome. Okay.
Secondly, I'm going to go with Star Wars Destiny.
Oh, that's an interesting choice.
Yeah. And actually not based on the fact that I've actually played it, but based on what I've heard about it, and I think I'd really enjoy it. And if you had all the expansions, you could then just give, if you had an infinite amount of cards, you could give them out to your friends, and they wouldn't have to spend loads of money on the various expansion packs.
Your friends are probably dead.
Oh, that's just ruined the dream.
Just crushed you. No, you can have as many expansions as you want, and your friends are still fine. That's I'm going to say that. What's the third game? Because there's now tapping on the windows as they have been alerted to your presence.
Do you know, I don't think I can get past Gloomhaven. So there aren't many things that will make me spend that much money for something that's not going to come for 6 months. So if it was there on the shelf and I knew I was getting it in a month's time, I'd probably just get it anyway.
So Gloomhaven is your final choice.
Gloomhaven's my final choice. It's quite heavy stuff, isn't it, those ones? Well, I suppose it's not exactly social games.
Yeah, but it'll do. It'll do.
How about you, Richard? What are your three? Have you told us yours before?
Not yet.
Okay, that's coming.
That's definitely, yeah, that's definitely going to happen at some point, but not until the end.
You're just such a man of mystery, Richard. It's I feel like I know you so well, but not at all at the same time.
No, I am an enigma wrapped in a riddle.
You are.
Covered
exactly.
Covered in salted caramel. So I'm chewy, but confusing.
Yeah.
If people want to find out more, if they've listened along tonight and they says, well, first of all, you can wait until the Kickstarter, which is on the 18th of this month, and we will make sure that that Kickstarter link is in the show notes. So as always, we have notes to show. But where can they find you on the interweb nets, TC?
Yes. So the main place is if you go to facebook.com/Big Imagination Games UK. That's where we put most of our stuff up. I have got a Twitter account. If you go /Twitter/TSBIG, TWECEBIG. And there's a website, bigimaginationgames.com. But mostly it's on the Facebook that we do stuff.
Cool. Well, all those links will be passed to us, and we will put them out there when we publish the episodes. So, as we say, we have notes to show. Thanks for coming on. Do you know what I realised? I only told one knock joke.
I know, it didn't happen. It didn't happen.
It was so fascinating. Do you know what I mean? But now I do feel like a set of curtains.
Why's that?
I think I should maybe pull myself together. Dun, 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 dun.
That's where the theme tune comes in.
Yeah, that's where the theme tune comes in.
Yeah.
No, listen, thank you for coming on. It's been a lot of fun. It's always been fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. As I say, it's an honour to be on your show.
No, not at all. Not at all. As I say, I'm just a nosy type that likes speaking to people. If you'd like to keep an eye on what we're up to, and we're grateful for everybody that does. Thank you for rocking up each and every time we are putting out an episode at the moment and showing your support. If you'd like to follow what we're doing, you can find us on Twitter at We're Not Wizards. You can find us on Facebook at We're Not Wizards. You can find us on Instagram at We're Not Wizards, which I need to put some more photos on. You can find us on YouTube, because all of our episodes seem to end up on there as well now, thanks to our lovely host at Podbean. If you search for We're Not Wizards Tabletop, you will find us there. If you want to catch us through the various podcast catchers, which is ironic, me telling people to catch us on podcast catchers, because if they didn't have the podcast catchers then that we were not on, they couldn't find us on the podcast catchers. So we're on Speaker, we're on Acast, we're on Stitcher. We are also, obviously, you can find us on Apple Podcasts as well. If you like what you've heard tonight, and this is the first time that you've listened, thank you very much for listening. If you like us even more, if you go over to Apple Podcasts and you drop us a subscription, that would be very nice. If you like us even further than that, and you fancy, I don't know, dropping us a review, then drop on Apple Podcasts and do that as well. If you are going to drop us a review, remember, don't give us a 10, because that does just make us big-headed. But don't give us a 1, because that makes us cry. Give us somewhere in the middle, like a 5, because it's average. And we're a bit average. But the person who's not been average tonight is the wonderful Dr. Tom Clare, or TC to everybody who knows. Watch out the next time you visit his surgery, though, because he might be, he might whip out his copy of Star Wars Destiny and try and challenge you. He might ask you to play Kylo Ren, and then he'll say he'll only give you your ointment if you beat him. So it's one of these things that just might happen. But again, no, thank you very, very much for coming on. It's been a lot of It has been a lot of fun. One last shout out to a new listener who tweeted us today, Mr. Mark Hinton. So hello, Mark. He says, "Oh, I've just found your show, and thank you for joining us." But there are only 2 more things to do. And
what are they, Richard?
Well, the first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards?
Yeah, I'm certain. I'm not a wizard. I don't know about you, but I can't speak for you really. But I'm not.
We're not wizards. No. We are animals of different species. We have different skills. We have claws. We have teeth. We have fur. We have fins. We have flippers. We have hoofs. We are carnivores. We are herbivores. We're potentially also ungulates if we do like, to be, say, maybe a giraffe, for instance. But we're definitely not wizards because we're about to appear in our very own special edition of the Olympics. So if you see a dolphin going past with a ball in the air and a wink on his face and he's showing off to the crowd, then maybe it's you that's played the card and not somebody else.
Amazing.
And the next thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from the fantastic, the wonderful, the highly educated health meister. That's Dr. Tom Clare. Say goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye. See ya.
And it's a goodbye from me. As I say, stay safe, roll sixes. And until the next time. But until the next time, goodbye. Say goodbye, Tom.
See ya. Bye. Have a good one.
Bye.